Find your flow, follow the map. Mile High Dreaming's got your back. Denver skies.
Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Mile High Dreamin'. Ready to get the session started. I'm Fuller. I am your leader for this session. I am a Chris. I know lots of Chris's, so generally just go by my last name. Fuller. I'm out of Atlanta, visiting Denver just for this, so always a good excuse to be able to come out. So today what I want to walk through is demo-driven design, how being focused on demos can help you build better agents and communicate with your stakeholders better. With that, of course, we'd like to thank all of our sponsors for this amazing Mile High Dreaming. We've got those, and a quick intro about myself. I've been a solution engineer at Salesforce for over 10 years. Solution engineer is basically on the sales side, but the first technical resource on the sales side. So largely what we do, what we're visible of doing is giving presentations. But with that, we probably listen 5-10 times more than we present. And so a lot of it is listening to customers, finding out what kind of problems they have, coming up with a solution, presenting it back. That's what an SE is. This is my LinkedIn. So if you have any questions after the fact and you want to reach out, feel free and hit me on LinkedIn, send me a message, and I am happy to send you that. And with that, let's see, if I pull up my next build, it will keep the QR code up if you're still wanting to load that. And that is, oh, do I have my build? There we go. I wanted to put a little call out from my favorite demo, which was the original iPhone announcement. I don't know how many of y'all saw that, but pretty amazing in 2007, taking the world by storm and reinventing what a smartphone is. I put my favorite screenshot of it, which was the first time he did the pinch to zoom, and everyone jaws were dropping in the room and all over the world. So I think it's neat to have a favorite demo. I miss Apple doing live demos. I hope they get back to it someday. All right. So that is me. So I want to talk about the why for today. The mission of a Salesforce admin is to solve business problems and help the company get the most value out of their Salesforce investment. So what I wanted to do today was talk to you about how you can better present things you're working on to your stakeholders, either to get a pilot started or once you have a pilot and you get some positive results to be able to go broader with that. The focus today is on Agentforce, so that's what we will be talking about that in this framework. So what makes a good demo land? For me, it's really three things. We've got our story, and that is not having a harbor chore, and you've probably been in demos like this where someone pulls up a screen and says, all right, this button does this button does this, let me just show you all of the features. It's very easy to lose someone in that regard because it shows very little empathy for your users. And that's what, for me, the focus is empathy for who are the people that need this and how do they go about their day. And so having that in the front of your mind will help you tell a story of, oh, this is how this user, the issues that they're dealing with and how we're going to solve those problems. So keeping them front and simple. And along with that is simplicity. You've probably also been in demos where you've got 5 different personas and you're going back and forth, and sometimes it can be hard to understand where you are at any given point. And so with that, keeping things simple so it's easy to understand and digest. And then finally, pain. Pain is critical. If you're coming in with a solution, there has to be a problem that you're solving. If you're not solving a problem, then okay, that's neat, but there's no real value there. And so there is no gain without pain. And so every part of a good demo or a good story that you're telling should involve the pain of where they're coming from, and then you will have the solution to relieve that pain. So what I wanted to do is set up a framework for how you can basically explain what your agents are doing. and that's the Spark framework. And so you've got a situation. What is the issue? What is the pain around that? The agent is our solution. Then we have a result and a KPI. And all of these are a good way to remember how are we setting up what our agent is going to do. And so I wasn't sure how many people we have, so I would like to keep it somewhat interactive. If you have questions, feel free and jump in. I also believe in using just the amount of time that we need for our session. So as we go through, if we end a little bit early, fantastic. No one's ever mad to get out of a meeting a little bit early. But I wanted to start with a little bit of a micro exercise. So let's say that we've got an agent, and in this agent, it auto-generates emails from meetings. Okay, that's giving me a little bit of information, but I don't have a good understanding of the why and the framework behind that. So take a moment to think about how you would use that Spark framework to rewrite that. And so I'll give you just a quick moment to think about that one. And as you're doing that, you're shifting from the feature to the outcome. So if I were to put this in the Spark framework, would say right after your meeting ends, that's our situation. Follow-up slip, that's our pain. A background agent drafts emails, tasks, and links to decisions. That's the action, that's what it's doing. The reps press send in seconds, that's the result. And then finally, our KPI, pilot saw a 28% same-day follow-ups. So by putting it in this framework, now all of a sudden you're getting your stakeholders a much better understanding of the why behind your agent. And then ideally, you can use that to get a pilot started, or then take that and if you have a pilot, produce the results of your pilot and bring it to your leadership and say, this is why we need to go broader with this. The KPIs are critical. So we've got the pain up front, and that explains the why. And then the KPI shows that you've actually measured from where you're starting to where you're going. And by putting those together, this helps communicate your demo much more effectively. So I wanted to take a quick step back just to explain Agentforce, just to level set. A lot of you have probably seen this, but just to make sure that we all understand, when you've got agents, there are 5 attributes of an agent. So you've got the role, is what does the agent do? You've got the data. What data can they access that they need in order to perform their actions? The actions are what capabilities do they have? So actions are really what separate this from former chatbots. You give it capabilities. Oh, they can escalate cases. They can write a report for you. They can draft emails. Then you've got the guardrails. What shouldn't they do? Okay, I'm going to allow you to move the stage of an opportunity, but an agent can't close an opportunity by itself. A human has to do that. So you can give it guardrails. And then finally, the channel. Where are you interacting with this agent? And this one I think is interesting, and we'll talk about this with the examples that I've got. The channel, I think a lot of times people think, okay, well, I've got my little Agentforce window inside of Salesforce. I've got Slack. I've got some other channel like a window on the website where we're interacting with it. The channel can also be background. So, and that is one that I'll hit on a little bit later, but kind of keep that in mind as well. So the two use cases that I wanted to focus on today are a pre-call planner, and which is a foreground agent, and then a silent wingman, which is a background agent. And with this, the idea was, and I just put the summary up there, they're not in the Spark framework yet, but the idea was that coming up with, especially if you're getting started with Agentforce, high impact, low friction, easy to pilot agents. And so pre-call planner, this is one that is already in the employee agent if you're getting started, but you can enhance it. And so I'm going to show what some of those enhancements might look like. And then the silent wingman, I wanted to put in a background agent because having something trigger automatically reduces the friction of being used. So as you can think, you've got users, now all of a sudden they've got the little Agentforce icon. If they're in Salesforce, they click on that. It opens up that window, they can start interacting with it, but they're not used to that. That's brand new to them. And so you're gonna have to train them to go to that place to interact. And then once they do, you have to train them, oh, these are the kinds of things you can ask for. And when you open up your Agentforce window to start, you can give it suggestions to prompt the user to say, hey, these are things you can try. But that is a change in their workflow. And so having things that they've already, making it easier where they can be triggered automatically is another good path for agents that I think a lot of people aren't thinking about. So with that, I will give the caveat that, of course, with live demos, there's always an issue that can happen. Unfortunately, my demo environments were not functioning this morning, but I'm going to walk you through what these agents, how they work, and give you a background of them. And if you want to follow up with me and see those in action, I can get those for you. So for that first one, which is the pre-call planner, I've got the start of a prompt here. And the idea is that you're outlining what does that pre-call plan look like. So if you've got a sales rep, the sales rep is going to a meeting, they want to know everything about their customer going into that meeting. You've got your account page, you've got your 360, but if you can get a report that consolidates all of that, then all of a sudden you've got a lot more information as that sales rep. You've got empathy for your user, and you're giving them the tools that they need to be more successful in that meeting. And so specific things that we're calling out are how many words is it so it's easily digestible, especially if they start using this. This gives them a chance to know it's always going to come back in a given format. I'm always going to see the top cases. I'm always going to see issues that they're having, and it's formatted in that same way. And so by setting that up, and this is the start of the prompt here, then that gives you the information you need, or gives the rep the information they need. Some of the potential hiccups can be with hallucinations, right? We all know about LLMs and just making up facts. And so one of the things that we found helpful is if a fact isn't present, given the instruction, write unknown, don't infer, right? And so you're more likely to be able to trust it because it's less likely to go rogue and just make up things that are not actually on the account. So let me stop here just for a second. And I'm curious, maybe we can do a show of hands. Who has gotten started with any agents yet in their org? Okay, we've got a few, cool. And then probably some others are investigating or thinking about it, but haven't really gotten started yet. Okay, great. And then hopefully you all are taking advantage of Trailhead where you can learn more and try different prompts out. The great thing about that is being able to go hands-on in an org. And so getting an org with Trailhead, with Agentforce enabled gives you the opportunity to test out some of these prompts before it's turned on in your org. And also a quick side note, if you know who your account executive is, they can turn on the foundation SKU, and I think there are other sessions about foundations and getting the most out of it. But they can turn that on in your sandbox, and when they do, you've got the capability to start building agents in your sandbox, and you can eventually push those to production. All right, so that is kind of the starting prompt there. And if we think about that Spark framework and apply it to that agent, then that gives me some helpful information to be able to frame this to my stakeholders. So say for our SPRK, right before a meeting starts, the necessary information is in a lot of places. That's our pain. Then an employee agent compiles all the useful information into an easily readable report. Reps are prepared for calls. Rep conversion rates increased by X%. So the ability to have all of that in one place and then capture that in the Spark framework, again, is going to help your communication to those stakeholders about why this agent is important and how it can help make a difference for your stakeholders. Let's see, some of the other pitfalls that you can potentially have in this issue are overlong briefs. You can address that with the instruction that we gave of making sure to keep the brief to a certain amount. And then also stale data. And you can also put an instruction to say, only include the most recent cases or cases from this year. You can get that information. The other thing that I found helpful, and I've worked with a few customers on this, is after you create your initial agent, is getting your pilot group as soon as possible and putting it in their hands. There will be things that you don't think of that your users will come up with, and they will give you really excellent feedback. And so the reason I mention that is I've had some customers that create an agent and then working to perfect it and then trying to get every last thing done, but they're missing this step of feedback from the user. And without that, you're not building the best possible agent because you're doing it in a vacuum. So think about that. Yeah, question.
Building on that point, but going back a little bit to the KPIs,
Mm-hmm.
when in the process are you establishing the key performance indicator? How do you create that system?
Sure. So that's one thing I wanted to mention here. Now's a great time, is when you are thinking about, okay, this is the agent I want to do, and I want to talk to my users and understand their pain. Ideally, the framework that I've seen work well is do 1 week before turning it on and get a baseline for whatever it is that you're doing. And so if you can observe the sales reps for 1 week and get a sense of, okay, before this meeting, how long did it take you to pull together this information? Either you didn't, or it took you an hour, or however long. And then that gives you a baseline, and maybe check in with multiple reps over multiple days. And then having 1 week, so that's 1 week before turning the agent on, and then 1 week after you turn the agent on, and measure out, speak to them again, and say, okay, based on how long that took, what's your feedback on, do we want to iterate and make any changes, but then also, how much shorter was it? And then that gives you a before and after. And so that 2 week framework has worked well, and I think that's a good way to get started. Mm-hmm. Other questions or comments on that? That's a good one. All right.
Can you repeat the questions when people ask them?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that was about how you figured out what the KPIs were going to be, but you can't hear what the question actually was.
Yes, sure. It was, the KPIs, but also just understanding, like, where do you start from? And so starting from baselining, making sure you understand what is the current state before turning the agent on, and then being able to measure and compare. Good call out. I will do that. Awesome. Okay. So for the silent wingman, let's say that we've got an AE who is a little more resistant to change, where they aren't necessarily going to be the first ones who are going to open an agent and start typing in commands and then getting feedback. And so for this, and this is just the start of it, again, if you want some more information for this agent, feel free to reach out to me. But I wanted to include a little bit here. The idea behind this is that it's doing a couple of things. It is creating, and you can have a couple different triggers on your use case, depending on if it's sales or service. But if we're thinking about that sales use case, from a call ending, and if you're using ECI, Einstein Conversation Insights, and you're uploading your calls, then you can use that as a trigger. But if you have the ability to have a trigger on a call ending, you can potentially do it on logging a call as well, or logging a meeting. Then, okay, now I want Agentforce to take action, and I want it to do 2 things. The first thing is create a JSON of potential follow-ups, and then the second is to create a human-readable brief to explain what's going on. Now, why do we do that? The JSON is for the automation. So this gives something behind the scenes that the user's not going to see, that you can then feed into a after record change Apex. And so that way, it will read the JSON. The advantage there is there's less room for errors or less room for interpretation in that because you're creating a machine readable format. The Apex can then take that and then generate your follow-up emails, log your tasks for follow-ups, create notes on the opportunity. So you can give it several things to be able to do. And then in the window, it can echo the human readable brief to let the user know what is happening. And so that way, and you can figure out what's going to be most effective for your users in your org. Obviously, since it's being triggered behind the scenes, you want to figure out what is the best way to let my sales rep know or my user know that this has happened and that they have all of this information. And so you can potentially send them a notification inside of Salesforce to do that. So that is the starting point. And the value here obviously is reducing that friction. They don't even have to know to do anything. And the system is going to prompt to them, hey, we're acting on your behalf. Here's a bunch of things. Can you approve this? And starting with that approval is going to be really important. And then after you get confidence and you pilot to a group, then you can get a sense of, okay, I feel comfortable with it automatically creating the tasks and sending those out without approval. Obviously, any emails, follow-up emails to my customer, I'm always going to have a human in the loop for that, but you can decide which things to happen without a human in the loop and which ones to happen with. And our Spark framework for that, if we kind of break that out, is that right after a meeting ends, follow-up slip and action items are lost. I think something we can all identify with. A background agent detects that the meeting ends, pulls notes, transcripts, creates a call summary, pulling out action items, and drafting up a follow-up email. Our results is same-day follow-up rate jumps, and our KPIs could be rep admin time reduced by 30 to 50% with 20% more same-day follow-ups. And so that is our Spark framework for that. I wanted to give you this as a framework as well. When you are designing a new agent, this is one that I've used with customers. I found it to be quite helpful of just explaining, okay, what is my use case? And then going back to the 5 things. What is the data that I need in order to do that? What are the topics? And if you know Agentforce, we've got topics and actions. Topics are how it starts to process on what you're doing. The actions are the capabilities that you're giving it. What are the instructions potentially in just in the topics, or if you're leveraging Prompt Builder, what those instructions are, and then where you're interfacing it. So I wanted to put an example in here, one we all know really well, and that is Salesforce.com. And so what does this do? That is, we want to help people find what they're looking for, answers, and make sure that they have a smooth customer experience. So that is the start. And if we start to come in here, then we can see, all right, we've got the data that we're going to need is all of the knowledge around how Salesforce works and what Salesforce Help is, and then potentially information about the customer itself, if they're logged in, and then information about if they need to escalate and ask someone access to their calendar so that they can have that capability as well. For the topics, what are they doing, or what are the topics on? That's product support. For our instructions, don't guess. Always provide a link when giving information. So I think one thing that helps a lot when people are using LLMs and AI is to be able to show your receipts. And so you know, like, okay, you're giving me an answer, now I can easily validate it because I have the link. And so adding that as an instruction is helpful most often. And then don't schedule same-day meetings with AEs. For our actions, being able to give answers, being able to schedule time with an AE or escalating to a service rep. So those potential actions that it can take, and then where is that happening, and that's on help.salesforce.com. Great. Any questions about the framework or how to potentially leverage that? The thing that I think is most important, so I've been in some ideating workshops where we'll get a group, get a whiteboard, we'll throw out ideas. The things that have helped me to say, all right, you're getting started with Agentforce, let's start simple, are usually data using that as a constraint. So if all of the data that's required in this is in Salesforce, that's going to be a step easier. Now, obviously, we can use Data Cloud, and we can potentially get data anywhere, and it can be structured or unstructured data. It could be PDFs, all kinds of information. And we can build complex agents. But out of the gate, if you have some use cases that like these that can operate just with data inside of Salesforce, that'll give you an easier starting point. All right, so let's summarize kind of what we talked about so far. So leading with story, not with features, to be able to understand what it is your users need. So again, empathy for your users and your audience when you're sharing your demonstrations. Designing for zero friction. And so ideally making it as easy as possible for your users to be able to get their value. And then, just like we talked about there, shipping small, safe pilots. So this gives you a good starting point. And then ideally, if you've got success with that, you can build and go to a more moderate use case to say, okay, now we want to do something that's going to pull data in from Databricks or Snowflake. It's going to give a more enhanced pre-call brief. So if we think about that pre-call brief, you can easily be created with just information inside of Salesforce. You can then enhance it later by saying, we also want to pull customer analytics data from, this external system. And so you can think about either enhancements to existing agents or agents that were not possible until you integrate other data. All right, so we've seen some of that framework in there. We've talked about Spark and understood that. Like to take any questions you all have about your Agentforce journey and any questions you have about Agentforce or demos in general. Shoot.
So just to kind of expand upon what you've been talking about, how do you train your agents? Is it the feedback? Is it the testing center, sandbox? What have you found the best way to train your agents?
Sure. So testing center always a good place to start, right? Because it will automatically take a series of tests and run those for you, and you'll get a sense right away. Every time I've run that, especially the first time on an agent, I'll get lots of red, which is good because I'm seeing, okay, here's some issues I hadn't thought about. Again, the importance of getting it in the hands of users as soon as possible. And so if you're doing that 1 week of observation, or at least kind of baselining, making sure you can baseline your users, then putting it in their hands and getting feedback right away. Not only do you get, okay, what were we able to improve, but ideally they're giving actionable feedback that you can use to improve it. And so having that feedback loop from users, I think, is critical. Excellent question. So yes, the question was, are there any anti-patterns that you've identified, much like the, hey, if there's the instruction, do not infer. If something is unknown, just say unknown. Are there other things that have jumped out in that vein? I would say nothing specific. A lot of it is kind of or more specific to a given customer, but the user feedback has been useful because every once in a while you'll get an unexpected result, and then you can add a new instruction to address that. To say like, oh, every once in a while it creates a much longer report, and so making sure to have a instruction based on that length or giving consistency to that, because there's a lot of value to your users to see okay, I know what the report's going to look like. It's going to look exactly like this. So not specifically, but that is something to look out for. Yeah.
Is there in agent, when you're building the agent, is there a way to identify like, hey, was this helpful? So the end user can say like, hey, all right, this was this helpful, was this not? And then be able to track that feedback through through your review cycle.
Yes, so you can turn on logging for your agents, so you can actually go through, and definitely in your pilot, that's a good call out. Sorry, question is there a way to see how effective it's being like while you're going through your pilot? And so turning on logging is very important, so you can go up and look at actual conversations. You can potentially add in an instruction to ask for feedback, especially during the pilot. I think that's probably an excellent idea, just to see, okay, maybe we don't have this after it goes broadly to the entire organization, but during the pilot, I'm going to put a 1-question survey at the end of this interaction, just so we can get more information that'll help us create a better agent.
For a given use case, what's the minimum amount of training data you recommend?
For a given, give me an example. For a given use case, what's the minimum amount of training data you would recommend?
Like on this customer service help example you posted, what is the minimum number of users and iterations that you feel comfortable before you're ready to say, it's totally baked, let's release?
Yeah, that's going to be highly organization dependent, and also your organization's zest for AI and risk tolerance. But that said, like creating a pilot that, I mean, probably you've got some history with rolling out other features. I would leverage that as a background and say, all right, when we've done things in other veins, we've done a small pilot group, we've gotten feedback, we've released from there. And so I think that's largely organization dependent.
So it's what the organization can afford.
What do you mean by?
Well, if there are only 10 people.
Sure.
And they can only use themselves as users.
Sure.
Then they can only go so far with that. But if it is Salesforce corporate and it's their entire help desk, probably they'll put a little more time and energy collecting data.
Absolutely. So what the question or feedback was depending on the size of the organization is going to change what that looks like. If you've got a 10-person organization, obviously a 10-person pilot is no longer a pilot. If you've got Salesforce help, you are going to make sure that you test that more effectively before releasing it broadly. Although I will say there are a number of stories about Salesforce help internally that were kind of illuminating to me of where it would answer a question and we would recommend a competitor's product. And then so you can give it the instruction of say, okay, don't mention a competitor. But then someone asks a question, how do you integrate with ServiceNow or whatever? And then it won't answer the question. And then you got to go back and say, okay, you can talk about it, don't recommend it. Yeah. It's really interesting. So going through that iterative feedback is really critical because you start seeing things you didn't think of. Great, awesome. So I'm going to be here afterwards. Come up and ask questions. Thank you so much for coming in, and have a great Maha Dreamin'.
Follow the map, Mile High Dreaming's got your back.